On September 2022, Fernando Cluster was admitted to Emory University Hospital Midtown after suffering an intracerebral hemorrhage, commonly known as a brain bleed. Due to the severity of his condition, doctors determined that a portion of his skull needed to be temporarily removed to allow his brain to swell and heal. A 7 by 6 inch piece of his skull was removed to reduce pressure. 6 weeks later, Cluster returned to surgery to have the skull piece, about the size of a saucer, reimplanted. However, the hospital could not locate the bone flap. Emory Hospital issued a statement explaining that during an inspection of the freezer where bone flaps are stored, they were unable to find one with Mr. Cluster's patient identification. Although there were several bone flaps with incomplete or missing identification, none could be definitively identified as his. With a large depression in the right side of his skull and no bone flap to fill it, Cluster's surgery was canceled and the hospital fabricated a synthetic skull piece. By the end of November, the synthetic replacement was inserted into Cluster's head, but the hospital charged him over $19,000 for it. Cluster's ordeal didn't end there. After the synthetic bone was implanted, he developed an infection, requiring additional surgery, and was left unable to work for a period of time. Ultimately, Cluster's medical bills reached $146,800, and the hospital allegedly offered no discounts. Cluster and his wife are now seeking compensation from the hospital for the medical bills and emotional distress they've endured.
An Atlanta couple is now suing Emory Healthcare, accusing doctors of losing a piece of a man's skull in between surgeries.
This all started back in 2022. These are photos of Fernando Cluster in his hospital bed following surgery to treat an intracerebral hemorrhage. Now, it's when Fernando and his wife claimed the hospital lost part of his skull and then charged them more than $19,000 to artificially recreate it.
Now, this all started back in September of 2022 when Fernando Cluster fainted and was left with a very serious brain bleed. A few weeks later, he would be ready to go into surgery, but doctors would tell him that that piece of skull that they removed so his brain could heal was gone.
They're scared. They're terrified.
Fear it could happen again. Attorney 𝐒𝐢𝐬𝐧𝐞 representing Fernando Cluster and his wife trying to get the truth.
They got various contradictory messages about why surgery was postponed, and ultimately Emory told them that they had lost and misplaced a part of his skull.
At Emory Healthcare trying to fix Mr. Cluster's skull, and they would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. So let's walk through it. In November of 2022, that first visit, they would spend at least $40,000, only to find themselves back at the hospital December of 2023 because of an infection and need to remove that flap. There, they'd spend more than $110,500. March of 2024, they would come back to get a brand new flap put in for $77,700. In total, this couple would spend at least $228,200.
This is heartbreaking news, and I'm wishing for a quick recovery for him.